Vice President May2021 launches Smart Card Factory in Lagos, the first in sub-Saharan Africa. Nigeria generates 392.77 billion naira as company income tax in first quarter of 2021. Nigeria's diaspora remittances dropped by 28% in 2020, and oil prices decline on coronavirus surge in India. This is Business Express on the network service of the NTA, and we are reaching you live from Abuja, the nation's capital. Today, our guest will x-ray the impact of capital flight on economic growth in Nigeria. I am Leah Katung Babatunde. Happy holidays. The first smart card manufacturing plant to be certified in sub-Saharan Africa capable of producing complex polycarbonate cards has been launched by Vice President May2021. The Vice President says the economic future of Nigeria is extremely bright, adding that the Buhari administration, in following the recommendation of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council, has determined that manufacturing will be the main focus in bringing about dynamic growth, jobs and exports. This will mean retooling the business environment for greater competitiveness, especially with the takeoff of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement.
I'm really proud of your achievements thus far, and I believe that Nigeria's future will be defined substantially by how well we do in the three areas that Secure ID focuses on, notably security, identity, and manufacturing. Data is, as we all know, the future of the knowledge economy. Today, data is building up at lightning speed. Our personal data and even behavioral attributes are gathered as we access services on financial, social.
Data from the National Bureau of Statistics and Company Income Tax breakdown by sectors for the first quarter of 2021 shows that 392.77 billion naira was generated as company income tax (CIT), as against 295.72 billion naira generated in the fourth quarter of 2020 and 295.68 billion naira generated in the first quarter of 2020, representing 32.82% increase quarter-on-quarter and 32.84% increase year-on-year. Breweries, bottling and beverages generated the highest amount of CIT with 23.26 billion naira generated, and closely followed by professional services including telecommunications, which generated 18.17 billion naira. State ministries, parastatals generated 17.35 billion naira, while textile and garment industry generated the least and was closely followed by mining and automobiles and assemblies with 13.49 million naira, 34.4 million naira and 73.57 million naira. Out of the total amount generated in the first quarter of 2021, 152.33 billion naira was generated as CIT locally, while 184.59 billion naira was generated as foreign CIT payment. The balance of 55.85 billion naira was generated as CIT from other payments. Meanwhile, the World Bank says Nigeria contributed 40% of the remittances into sub-Saharan Africa. This is as contained in a report by the World Bank titled "Define Predictions, Remittance Flows Remain Strong During COVID-19 Crisis." It puts remittances to sub-Saharan Africa at $42 billion. 40% contribution of Nigeria means that remittances to Nigeria was $16.8 billion in 2020. The report said remittances to sub-Saharan Africa declined by an estimated 12.5% due to a decline in the remittances to Nigeria that contributes the largest amount in the region. The report also disclosed that diaspora remittances to Nigeria dropped sharply by 28% in the year 2020. It noted that this sharp drop was mostly responsible for the overall 12.5% decline for sub-Saharan African remittances during the year. Figures from think tank Global Financial Integrity shows that average illicit outflows is between 7.5% and 11.6% of sub-Saharan Africa's total trade. Nigeria, as well as other African countries, have suffered massive capital outflow to other developed nations, whether through money laundering, tax evasion, diverted revenues, offshore investment, and other forms of capital flight. The cause, magnitude, and consequences are the focus of our discussion today on the program. And Dr. Emeka Okengu is our guest, and he's here right here with me in the studio. You're welcome to Business Express.
Pleasure to be here.
Okay, great. Now, for starters, when we speak and say capital flight, what does it mean?
Well, let me start by saying Barka de Salah to Nigerians, to our Nigerian Muslim brothers and sisters. In your intro, you painted it as something very horrible. It can also be legal. Okay, but what it simply means, because you see, in capital flight, there's what they call capital quality. Okay, capital quality is when you are looking for safer grounds to put your money. So when people discuss capital flight, you also didn't put the criminal element in capital flight. So there's what you call the formal, probably the illegal, and then the criminal. In one word, it's all about moving massive amounts of capital from a location, usually an economy, by those who've put it in when it is legal. Okay? By those who've brought it in and then are not using the established norms, rules. That's what makes it illegal. By now, those who are also in charge of this economy, and then they are now moving these funds, okay, out of the country by way of corruption. And then you can also now move your resources, okay, not necessarily in cash, okay. You can also move your resources, like you see a lot of movement of mineral resources, especially gold, from Zamfara and around the country, which is estimated at about $8 billion that have been lost in the last 10 years or thereabout. Okay, so it's a mixture of a lot of things. But what that simply tells you is that capital is a coward. Okay, money is the biggest coward. It wouldn't stay where it's not safe. So the major cushion, the major trigger to capital flight will be that your economy or your environment is not safe to be able to warehouse that capital. Okay. So safety is, you can now begin to define safety in so many ways, but it has to be safe.
Okay, for an environment like ours, how would you describe the movement of funds to other countries? Some would say, we call them safer haven.
Well, it's obvious. I mean, that's why I said, if you look at the word safety, you can now begin to juxtapose it against, every other thing that is happening. And the first safety for money will be maybe your conventions. Okay, what are your economic policies? What are the microeconomic environment that you're operating? That would be the first consideration. Okay, sometimes like it happened in the Asian countries when their economy, their currency started losing value. Okay, and investors needed to take out the money before they lost, whatever was left of it. In our climb now, is Naira losing value? Okay, and what can make an economy lose value is only one very major factor against other maybe pseudo ones, is the lack of that currency to have value. And what gives a currency value is what it brings to the table, and that is productivity or production. Okay, the moment your economy is not producing, your goods and services now tend to now lose a lot of value. So the first challenge I think I see in our country is that we've not been able to hedge our currency, okay, with appropriate productive programs or production programs, okay, that can be able to now make it bring something to the table, something it can trade. So we're now trading on other people's goods and services against their own currencies. And that is where I think we'll have this challenge. And against that, yes, we must give it to government. Everybody is doing their best to be able to hem, this hemorrhage that is all global. But at the local level, you have a lot of the insurrections are making everything a little more difficult. We are not able to, pursue infrastructure development projects. We are not even able to do the basic staple production, of what we can be able to eat. So there's a lot of stifling, okay, of activities in the macroeconomic environment.
Okay, you've painted the macroeconomic environment and what is happening to our currency. You've also pointed out the legal and the illegal flights we are experiencing. With COVID-19 now affecting the global economy, including Nigeria, we back home here, which one is affecting us more? Is it the legal or the illegal one?
And the criminal. And the criminal. Okay, all of them are affecting us. You see, first and foremost, you need to put a proper definition to corruption. Okay, people don't understand. One of our presidents has said that corruption is not stealing, and people took him out of context. Corruption can be administrative. Okay, corruption can even be in your planning purposes. Corruption can be you're not understanding the holistic picture of what you need to do. For me, Nigeria presents the best opportunity to become a leading global power by the leveling of COVID. Okay, because there are two things going forward. It's all about skills and it's all about nutrition. I keep saying this each time I have this conversation. And with a country that has 86 million hectares of land that is arable, and everybody talks about nutrition vis-a-vis organic outputs, and we have practically everything, Lee. We don't have even one natural disaster. The only natural disasters we have in Nigeria is our human beings. Those are the only ones that are creating it. Okay? And this is all because we've not been able to create the proper framework that can be able to see us not depending, okay, on this SDG funding, which now ties us irretrievably to, global sympathy or global sympathies. And that's why it seems as if this thing is so hard on us. But if we were to look inwards, we can actually make the best out of this and then be able to make certain that we curb the criminal. And what is this criminal? People are taking money, raw cash out of our country, out of the economy. Yeah, a lot of people have been arrested at the airports taking raw gold. Okay, these are heavy, assets or points of bleeding to any economy that is in trouble. But if we had a system where we had a proper oversight, okay, command, control structure in our activities, by now making certain that we'll have our macroeconomic indices well put together, we'll now have a development plan, okay, that ties to the demands, first and foremost, of our local needs and then the international community. You will be able to hem a lot of this, and that's where you can now begin to even talk about this quality flight that I told you. It naturally attracts it. The moment people can put in their money, and then your legal regime, and all this ties to what you call your legal regimes. The moment you have a legal framework that protects, your investments, then people will be, that's the safest you can be able to assure.
Okay, great. Now, talking about the oversight you just mentioned, there's also the issue that has just come up recently, remittances into the nation's treasury.
Yes.
Do we classify that also as a flight?
Yes, the remittances the pipes can also leak. Okay, so if you're not able to aggregate your remittances and then ensure that you don't have any leakages, and that's what they call revenue leakages in your parlance. Okay, each time people are talking about revenue leakage, what are these revenue? It's all about your remittances, okay, and the pipes or the structures you use in your taxing. And again, each time we talk about Nigeria, I keep saying to you, where the problem is not with this federal government. Where the problem is with the subnationals. Okay, because we're a country. Everybody expects President Buhari to take care of every Nigerian. Okay, but take it or leave it, there's also some limit to what he can do without the help, okay, of the subnationals. And if I'm talking about President Buhari, I'm talking about the federal government of Nigeria, not necessarily him. Okay, now, so if you're looking at being able to also hem this remittances flow, remember that states also pay taxes, and FIRS is not put together to just focus only on taking taxes from federal establishments. It's a national thing. So if you're not able to build those synergies that are seamless, and this is where again we have a lot of problems. What are the laws? Do we have laws that tie the nationals, subnationals, and even the third subnationals, the local governments, to an income generation, income transmission, okay, income aggregation, right, and income utilization that ties to one common goal of national development? That will be the challenge that can be able to now stem, our being able to attract quality flights.
Okay, and now still looking at the quality flights and other funds, you also talked about government efforts, all the while having to just bring everybody on board. We've seen programs in the past like the Voluntary Assets and Declaration Scheme.
Yeah.
How would you rate that effort of recovering funds, and particularly with even the upskill now, to see people declare their assets?
Good example.
Yeah.
Very good example. But remember that that scheme had a six months window, and then people were supposed to be going to face the full wrath of the law. How many people have gone on trial? The program is more or less, I don't know, I'm not in government. It's not having that kind of push. It's no longer as loud as he was when he was launched, because people were supposed, it was some kind of amnesty of sorts. Okay, we'll forgive you your sins, but going forward, let's do the right thing. However, it could also be all about the structures, the operational structures, and the infrastructure. Okay, because for you to be able to do this, you need both hard and soft infrastructure. Now, the softwares, which is where your soft infrastructure will come in, are they in place? Now, do you have this database that is able to, your husband gets, Mr. Babatunde, we gave you 6 months, your 6 months is up, and this, that, we're going to name and shame. Is it there? So it's talk is cheap, okay? But there's a lot of work that can go into this. The moment to identify, the important point I'm trying to make here is that you always have capital flight, okay? People like things for cheap. Everybody, the businessman says to you, I'm here to maximize profit. So to him, it is maximizing his profits. To you, he is taking your capital out illegally. Okay? So
it's a two-way thing.
And both of them are right in their computations and understanding of what the matters are. Now, to the person who is criminally taking these things out, okay, he believes that because you have your porous borders and that because the laws are not stringent enough or the oversights are not tough enough to be able to rein him in.
So where will be the midpoint?
The midpoint will be to create a new national understanding, okay, of capital utilization, or what capital means to an economy. Okay, vis-a-vis, we're not talking about human capital, we're just talking about capital vis-a-vis capital, and then be able to now understand what we mean by criminal, capital flight. Okay, understand what we mean by formal capital, because again, there are two ways you also now do investments, what you call your foreign direct investments and what you call your portfolio investments, where you have your debentures, bonds, and all that. Now, it's a lot easier to take away your portfolio investments. Okay, it's because they're more or less in the air. Okay, there are things that you conduct over networks, okay, or blockchains, as against your foreign direct investments that actually now allows these investments to come, and then there's a definite program, the defined terms and all that, and taxes tied to it. And again, that brings also taxes. It's such a complicated thing, okay? And because you see, your tax laws also play a very great role, right? If now there are two, there's a paradox, okay? If you devalue your currency, tendency is that two things can happen. If you're producing, people can come and buy. If you're not producing and it's a service-based economy, people will take their money because they're going to be losing money. So currency devaluation is a two-way thing. A lot of people think that, oh, currency devaluation, it can be good, but it's only good when you are producing.
Yeah.
Okay, it becomes very bad when your economy is all about import dependence, which is unfortunately a lot of what we have in Nigeria right now.
Okay. Unfortunately, our time is up. The topic is so broad, but I believe we're going to take the conversation a step further in the future. I must sincerely thank you, Dr. Kiongo, for all this being here.
Thank you very much.
Great. So we'll take a short break now, and Business Express will continue shortly.
National Microfinance Bank wishes to inform the general public not to give money to anybody disguising as its staff or agent to secure the COVID-19 Targeted Credit Facility or AGS MEIS loan. However, a training fee is charged by Accredited Entrepreneurship Development Training Institute (EDIs) for the training and business plan for the AGS MEIS loan. Whenever you are in doubt, please call us at 0901 002 6905. If anyone has collected money to help you get the loan, please lodge a complaint on our whistleblowing portal by sending us an email on whistleblower@nmfb.com.ng. National Microfinance Bank also wishes to inform the general public that the COVID-19 Targeted Credit Facility disbursed by our bank is a loan and beneficiaries must pay back with interest. The COVID-19 Targeted Credit Facility should not be misconstrued as a grant from the government. Call 094-621-730 or visit www.nmfb.com.ng for more information.
He's an engineer who fabricates things, literally everything. In the face of COVID-19, he saw a need and cashed in on the opportunity by fabricating a hand-washing machine. Olenka Ojo in our Surviving COVID-19 series tells us a story of how he met Jerry Malo.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
26-year-old Jerry Malo is a graduate of automobile engineering from Hertfordshire University in the United Kingdom. With a team of 37, he fabricated a twin stainless food press and hand washing machine with a 75 liters capacity water tank.
Considering the normal way of washing hands, people use their hands to turn on taps, they use the clean hands to turn it off. So we just felt that by that process you could contaminate any bacteria, any living organism that has been deposited on the tap head already. So we sat down as engineers and came up with a design.
This prototype can be described as don't touch, just step. It was manufactured using 100% local content.
We want to build a brand in Nigeria. We want, whenever they see something made in Nigeria, it will be like in those days when they say, this is German. So we want to see that these things are qualitative. So we've been focused on how qualitative these products are.
Just like the saying, when you meet the needs of others, you are invariably meeting your own need, thereby creating an enterprise for yourself. With this feat and government's buy-in, Malo and his team someday will be training youths across the geopolitical zones of the country, creating an army of entrepreneurs for the Nigerian economy.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank.
And the global commodities market is next. While markets in Nigeria and other African nations are closed for the public holiday, share in other parts of the globe slipped to 7-week lows on Thursday after a shocking rise in U.S. inflation figures this week. Boss Abel has details.
Asia Pacific stock market slumped on Thursday afternoon as Wall Street fell sharply with inflation data triggering fears of a rate hike. Mainland Chinese market fell. The Shanghai Composite dropped 1%. Hang Seng Index was 1.19% lower at 27,897.41, and the Nikkei plunged 2.49%. European markets are set to follow the negative trend seen in Asia Pacific overnight and the US on Wednesday, after the latest US inflation data for April showed higher than expected price pressures. The US Labor Department reported that the prices American consumers pay for goods and services accelerated at their fastest pace since 2008 in April, with consumer price index spiking 4.2% from a year ago. It has sparked fears that the U.S. Central Bank could increase interest rates sooner rather than later. Futures contracts tied to the major U.S. stock indices crept higher in overnight session Wednesday, just hours after persistent pressure on stocks pushed the Dow Jones Industrial Average to its worst day since January. Dow futures jumped more than 101 points, while Nasdaq futures and those tied to the S&P 500 also inched higher. For Africa, most stock markets are closed for the Eid Fitr celebration. Boss Day Able, Business Express.
And of course, it's Eid Fitr wishes from this end, and this is where we end this edition of the program. Remember to keep in touch with us by sending in your comments, observations, and suggestions. You can also communicate with us on Twitter. The handle is NTA News Now. Don't forget to use the hashtag BizX. Be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube, on the NTA's YouTube channel. Join us again on Friday at 3 p.m. My name is Leah Katun Babatunde.